Lorian, for a bit of an over-the-top intro there. And I can just state for the record, the actual godfather of Bitcoin in South Africa is Timothy Stranex, our CTO. And of course, the amazing Luno team that has spent a lot of time and effort working along with actually all the regulators, banks, many of you are in this room. Big team effort. I see I got this slot just before lunch. I don't know if that's for punishment of something I said 2 years ago at the Bitcoin conference. I think it might actually be exactly that. And I think, I agree the future is going to be really weird, but I think, as humans are, our thinking is pretty short term, so I'm pretty sure the only future that you guys have in your minds right now is food. So I'll try and keep it down to 10 or 15 minutes. Let me just see if this works. Okay. So as Lorian said, I'm one of the many founders of Luno. We're a digital currency company that make it easy for people to buy, sell, store, and use digital currencies. We operate across 40 countries. We're the market leader in Africa and in Southeast Asia. We have a team of about 200 people that sit across many different cities in the world: London, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Lagos, Cape Town, of course, and so on. But I've also been going to a lot of Bitcoin conferences and obviously been in the industry for a long time. And as Lorian said, before this, I used to work in banking. I did consumer banking, investment banking, private equity, a lot of different things. And I actually started thinking, as we were starting to build this company, we're all talking about changing the world of finance and fintech and all this stuff. But then I started realizing I actually don't have a clue how money works at all. I mean, I know I have balance in my wallet and stuff like that, but do I actually understand where money comes from? How is it issued? Why does it even exist? And I started wondering, but how can I have worked in finance for so long, and some other people as well, where we were never educated properly about how money works? And even at a high school level or a primary school level, why does no one talk about money? What is it really? And then I started thinking, but you know what? I have actually been taught about money a very, very long time ago. I just forgot about it. And actually it was growing up in a nursery school, actually not too far from here, let's say about 40 kilometers from here. Our teacher used to play a game with us called, in Afrikaans, telefoontjie, which means, literally translated, telephone. And what the teacher would do is they would say a little message into one of the children's ears, and the next child would say to the next, and the next, and the next, and the next. And in the end, you ask the child, what did they hear? And the message obviously comes out completely different. And it turns out that this game wasn't just played in South Africa, it was played all over the world, just by many different names, but in Germany, the US, and so on. Broken telephone, Chinese whispers, it has many different names. But it all serves a universal purpose to teach people that if you communicate, if you send a message and the conductor is not reliable, then what comes out on the other side is potentially not just incorrect, but it could be dangerous. At scale, if it's just 3 kids playing this, it's not so bad. If you do this at scale for society and it's really big, then really bad stuff can happen. So this, just out of curiosity, how many of you have played this game as children? Okay. So everyone knows what I'm talking about. Almost everyone. If you haven't, we can play afterwards a little bit. So I think what I realized when I started thinking back about this experience is that money, as we think about it today, or the financial system, is really just a communication system. People tend to think of money as something in itself. Something that you hold, or some balance on a screen, or even gold at some point. But it's not that. It's literally just a communication system. If we think back about how money was created and how the whole evolution started, again, maybe this is a 2 or 3 hour conversation, but initially there was no concept of money. People would live together in a small village or a small community, and someone would catch a fish and they would take it to the baker and they'd say, here's your fish, one day I'll come get some food from you when I'm hungry, you want to eat something. And it wasn't even a barter system. I think a lot of people say, oh, things started with bartering. There was no bartering. People just trusted each other in the village, and they all looked after each other. It was only later that the villages grew, and there were people that you might not have known, or where villages started interacting with each other, or people needed to go to another village to do something, that you needed to start, at that point, a bartering system. And that's where people started using commodities for bartering, like wheat, to transfer, essentially, information about what value they provided to their small little society there. So that value you provided, it says something about you as a person. It says, I took my talents, whether it was a lot or little, and my energy and my time, and I did something, and everyone else around me benefits from it, or certain groups of people, and people value that. So when we think about, about money, you should think of it as a digital footprint. And you should think about money as something that's deeply personal to you. Your knowledge, your talents, your energy, and your time. Now, the good thing about having a system like wheat or commodity, or later on gold coins and so on, it was very difficult to, if someone trusts you or you know someone, it's easy for them to know that you're good for that work that you did to contribute. But if you had to take it to another village or work with someone that you don't trust, you needed some intermediary thing. And again, started off with commodities because people knew it had value, and later it became like an intangible thing like gold or fiat currencies, which is just completely mental construct, right? Doesn't mean anything. It's just in all of our minds. But what money allows you to do, other than interact with parties that you don't trust necessarily, which is amazing, right? If you think about all the issues you have in the world with war and sexism and race and everything, money is the one thing that does not discriminate to anything, right? People don't care. If you take the dollar note out of your pocket, well, everything else goes away. It's the best system of mutual trust ever devised, which is a quote that comes from their book, Sapiens. But what it also allows you to do, this information that I have, it allows me to transport it over space and over time. So over space is the easier one. I can take this information about myself and I can go to another village or another country and I can present someone, again, not with money, just with information about me or something about me. And by the way, it might not just be something I did, it could be what my parents or their parents did. If people inherited money, they inherited value of things that people before them did, and that accumulates to that person. Whether they deserve it or not is debatable, but it's still with it. But what money also allows you to do is, what if I don't want to transact today? I don't want to transfer that value today. I want to hold on to it for a day, maybe for a week or a month. That's where certain things that provide a store of value, whatever we choose, allow you to hold on to that value and only use it later. So money is almost like an information time machine. It allows you to move forward in time by holding on to something. So if we look at money as a digital footprint, the value of you, if we use in very simplified terms, and communicating that value to other members of society over space and time and with trust. That is what it is. Now, if we think back to that example of the telephone game and the kids talking to each other, and again, it's just information communication, this is what we want the money and the global information system to look like. It must be a clear signal so that if you provide or create value, it must come out on the other side properly. Unfortunately, this is what the existing global, what I call the global value communication system, it looks like this. It's very distorted. Doesn't mean it's bad. We built it in this way. It was important to have something that worked. But for the world we live in today, new digital economies, much more global and so on, we've ended up with something like this. And what it does is, this signal that, you say, okay, but it's a bad signal, who cares? But it turns out there's a massive, massive cost to society of having this bad signal. And part of the problem is, because you don't see it happening in real time, it's not something that's pressing on you every day, you don't realize that the signal is bad. The signal accumulates over generations, and only then do you realize, oh, wow, there's a problem. So, just a couple of statistics around moving value over space. This is the one that people love to use about global remittance markets, a lot of value being extracted from people moving money across borders. In that case, billions and billions. This is a picture of markets, foreign exchange markets, which are about 5 trillion a day, versus the New York Stock Exchange, which is about 28 billion a day. Now again, if we are just communicating our value between people, whether it's a buyer and a seller or a favor or whatever, does it make sense necessarily to have people trading in foreign currencies between different countries, huge amounts, a lot of people, a lot of systems, a lot of cost, when actually it's just people transacting, sending information to each other? Now there's a reason why this thing was built in the first place, because at some point it was quite important. But again, we live in a little bit of a different time now. This is the global e-commerce market, also going into the trillions, right? If you think about buying things online, not just the cost of it, but also the time, having to type in your credit card number, not being able to transact, chargebacks, all this stuff. There's a lot of time and value being extracted by this industry. Also a lot of value that's provided, but there's a question mark how much of it is important. And then the financial impact of interoperability. Now, no matter how hard I try to search, I haven't found anyone that can quantify what is the cost of interoperability. But as we all know, for financial inclusion, for a lot of systems to work efficiently, interoperability is a massive, massive problem. So interoperability just means I can move my value easily between systems and use that frictionless way to unlock new business opportunities, to bring costs down, and so on. And again, many companies on purpose don't want that to happen, but it has a huge impact on moving value over space. There's also impact on moving value over time. I'm not going to delve too deep into this because some of it's a little bit debatable, but if you look, for example, a lot of the quantitative easing and money being printed over the last, this is a very short time frame, only 10 years, but if you look at how money supply works, and a lot of it does get created, there's very good reasons why one can manipulate money supply. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But if it's used in excess, it depreciates the value of your value that you created. Now, again, sometimes this needs to happen. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But just bear in mind that when that thing that you're holding in your hand, a lot of people say, oh, but the price of Bitcoin is so volatile, what's going on? You must just understand, when you hold a $1 note in your hand, that thing is moving around a lot. Whether it's inflation, exchange rates, whatever. It's a living information messaging system that is moving the whole time. You just don't realize it. And then also there's a massive opportunity cost. So here we have a study from McKinsey that talks about financial inclusion and potentially trillions of GDP being boosted by people having access to finance or to a financial system that's easy to access. And of course, there's all kinds of interesting, innovative ideas that we don't even know that can happen, but it could be through micro transactions, it could be through some of the stuff that you've heard over the last few days, that will be unlocked if we have a signal that's a little bit stronger. But the point here is that a bad signal erodes value to society, and not just society. You must understand that it's a deeply personal thing to you and to your children and to generations after you. So the question is, how do we change things, or if we should even change things at all? Are we happy with the signal? And if you asked me 10 years ago, can we change the signal? I said, we can try, but it's going to be hard because we've built a really, really big monster already, and it's not so easy to fix it. But now we all have all kinds of new technology that we can start playing with to say, maybe we can do something about it. And when I say change things, I don't mean occupy Wall Street and go, the banks did it, the governments did it. People like to just blame, blame, blame. The reality is, we all voted the governments into power. We all banked with the banks. And again, I just want to make a point. I'm not saying the banks are bad, because the facilitator of someone being able to store value, to help you move your value around, that's an important function. But we created this massive global communication system with a really bad signal in it, which means the good news is we can also change it, if we choose to change it. So in my view, there's two ways to do it. We can either fix the old system, and a lot of people are trying to fix the old system, but just remember now, the system was created over centuries. It's like a quilt, just a little bit here, this currency here, plugging into this system, this country, old, new, fintech, banking, central banking. It's messy, okay? But we can try. But by the way, this is what a lot of fintech companies are doing, consumer fintech companies. They're not changing the system. They're just saying, okay, there's the old system, let's fix it. Let's be a bit more transparent. Let's bring the pricing down, build a bit better user experience. And there's nothing wrong with it, but that's their approach. The only slight apprehension I have around this is that we've seen in other industries what happens when people try and fix the old system, especially when it comes to communication. So, again, we can probably make a lot more complicated and interesting slides here, but if you think about communication that went from phones to mobile phones, and that was completely displaced by voice over IP. Well, okay, not completely, that's wrong, but it's been impacted a lot by voice over IP. And essentially a new technology came in, the internet, which is decentralized, and it changed the way we think about how that works. And the same thing goes for the mail industry. Deliver it by foot or by horse, then by train. And at some point, there's other steps along the way as well, but at some point we have email, and it's, again, it doesn't take that completely away, but it's a paradigm shift. And so I suspect, even though I think maybe we can change the existing system, because I think it's more important than what people realize, and maybe we can do it, but I'm a little bit skeptical that it's going to happen given what we've seen in other industries. And again, specifically when it comes to communication, which is what we're talking about today. We're talking about communicating value. So, is there an alternative way? Well, maybe we can build a new or better system. And going back to that analogy, the teacher talking to the children, in this case would be instead of passing a little message from the one to the other, decentralized network, it's like the teacher talking to the whole class, and everyone hears the same message. It's a much more pure signal. And also potentially from a moving value over time, there are arguments to say you can retain that value better over time. Again, these things are debatable. And I don't want to dig too much into cryptocurrency. Is it blockchain? Is it ICO? That's not the point here. The point is just that we have tools now to start building potentially a better financial system. And not just are people theorizing about it, they're actually starting to do it already. But I'm not sure if they always know. So if you look at, for example, the product that we have, a Luno, which is a wallet where you can buy Bitcoin or buy Ethereum and use it and store it. What a lot of people see when they see this product, they say, oh, someone just bought Bitcoin. Probably they wanted to make money or speculating or whatever. But what we see is not that. We see someone that has transitioned from the old financial system into the new financial system. Maybe just a little bit. Maybe they're just dipping their toe in the water, but they're actually starting to transition without even realizing it. And the other thing that they're doing, which they don't even know yet, and I think people will start realizing at some point, is that they're starting to vote for change. When people buy their first little bit of digital currency, no matter what it is, they're basically sending a signal to the world to say, I am willing to consider an alternative. Doesn't mean the alternative will end up working. Maybe, I mean, there's also a lot of problems in terms of building a new financial system, and it will potentially take many, many years. But at least they're saying, look, we're thinking about it. Even 1 cent, when you buy 10 cents worth of Bitcoin, you're saying, I'm sending a signal to the world that this can potentially change. So what we have here is, instead of people protesting, and you all have those friends on your Facebook feed that have these always a cause that they go on and on about, but they never actually do something about it. They just like to talk. And then you get people that you never hear about that are out there actually doing stuff. And that's the difference, right? A lot of people, oh, we hate banks, blah, 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 blah. But then you have other people that are actually just voting. Every little bit of Bitcoin, every little bit of Ethereum, that's a vote, that's a vote, that's a vote. And you can see it because it's public. The more wallets, the more transactions. Those are all little votes. And it's this, people think Bitcoin and decentralized currency is quite chaotic, but it's actually a very orderly, democratized change from one system to another system. So that's in line with what we do as a company, and maybe just to start wrapping that up, our vision is to upgrade the world to a better financial system. That's how we think about it. But that's something that's a very long, we're not trying to do it today. Today we just make it easy for you to buy and sell digital currency. But in the next 10 or 20 or 30 years, this is where we're heading. But I highlighted the word better because it's very important. It doesn't mean that this system is perfect. It doesn't mean that we know exactly what that system's going to look like. It doesn't mean that it solves all the problems. It's just potentially better than what we have today. And in our industry, there's a lot of questions, whether it's from the regulatory angle, the scaling angle. There's a lot of things, but how can it work? How can people think it wouldn't work? This is a challenge. There's all these unanswered questions. And frankly, we've been working in the industry for many years, and we're still learning so much, and we don't have the answers to almost any of these things. We can hypothesize. But the one thing that we do know for a fact is that the way people think about money and the way people use money will change. We know it for a fact. And the reason we know it is if you read up on the history of money in depth and you see what's happened over the past few thousand years, not 20 years, you can see money has changed. The concept of money has changed many, many times. Everything from how it's distributed, how it's stored, who issues it, what do people use. It's an evolving thing. And so I can't stand here today and say, I know what it's going to be. It's going to be Bitcoin, it's going to be Ethereum, it's going to be something else. I don't even know if it will happen in our lifetimes. But I do know it's going to happen. We suspect that we might be sitting right in the middle of one of these evolutions. And again, it's not a bad thing. We are moving towards something where we reduce the signal in the system to a lot of benefit. You can try and put a number on what the benefit to society is. I don't know what the number is, but we're looking at many, many trillions if we get it right. So just to get back to the topic at hand, people love to talk about banking the unbanked, especially in emerging markets. And typically what they mean with that is, this is the lucky bank guy who has this amazing app and he can see his balance. And this is the poor unbanked people, and they now need to, people try and convert this to that. And in my view, that is the completely wrong way to think about this. For me, being banked is a mindset. And again, when I say being banked, I don't mean using a bank. We also operate similar to what a bank would do. So that's not a bad thing. When I say banked, it means how we think about money, how we store our money, how we move our money. So we need to start thinking about it as information and a communication system that can efficiently distribute it. And the truly unbanked is this, people like this, children. Because all of you sitting here are adults, or at least appear to be from the outside. But just think about everything that you've learned in your life, and as you grew up, all the things that were taught to you in a certain way and how the world works and how you should think and so on. And we all kind of brainwashed, not kind of, very brainwashed. So again, I'm not saying what is the best answer. I don't know what the answer is. But all I'm saying is for you to want to bank the unbanked or help people, to address both these markets, these people and these people, the way is to start thinking like a child about this again. Go back to the fundamentals, think what money really is, and do it consciously. When you put your hand in your pocket and you feel your wallet, what is that in my pocket? What is that money? When you log into your internet banking, look at that number. What is that number? What does it mean? When I swipe my card at the Starbucks, what have I just done? I've just given some of my hard work to such a person. Where is this information being distributed? What's going on? So start thinking on a daily basis. You know, dumb yourself down a little bit. And if you want to build a better global communication system to progress humanity, start by unbanking the bank. That's it. Thank you.